Hello, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon cake session at EIT Health. Today, we have a cooperation project with EIT RIS community and the EIT Health Alumni. And we have a very interesting guest joining on today, Dr. Balázs Gasz from Hungary. And he was originally a surgeon, but now has become an entrepreneur, one of the co-founders of Your Anastomosis, and has grown a team from initial 4 co-founders to 12 and counting, and it's really changing the way how probably the surgeries and surgery training is happening in the future. Hello, Balazs.
Hi, hello, Timo, and thank you for the introduction. So so it's very honoring for me. Thank you.
But let's get started. I mean, how on earth it happened that usually, I think most of the doctors, they kind of become do the training and become and work for the next 50 or 60 years doing, let's say, quite limited procedures. But you were a doctor and now you're running your own health tech startup. How this kind of thing happened that you became an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Maybe some point I could just highlight what really changed my career. I would say. So once I would say that we just have faced with very definite problem what we just was thinking on. So during the real everyday work of surgery. So I'm a cardiac surgeon, and we the direct colleagues of me and me, of course. So just faced some problems that we felt and just some extra activity or hobby or something like that. We just started to work on how we can technologically validate the solution for that. And as I felt and as I saw the some ways of solution, then I gradually tend to increase my working hours into that project, and of course I have so it's just back to the background. So I really started with research work, so after the university, and also it gave me some implications, just how to make a research project and be insightful enough to see novel problems maybe, and it remains also in the clinical. So during the clinical work and I just had a hobby with 3D technologies and modeling and making some calculations from different structures from image modalities of the patient. And I just do it nighttime, just as like a hobby. And as we saw some options for definite a problem, and we saw the solution, then we just decided to work full-time on it.
That sounds great. And maybe just to give a essential understanding to our readers or watchers in our channel watching this interview, what is exactly that you are doing at your startup, that how you are changing the healthcare, that how those 3D models and surgery all blends together, and what is your value proposition for
Thank
the,
you
for the
very
industry?
much. So briefly, we work on giving some direct and clinically relevant feedback for all of the trainers and surgical experts, even during hands-on training, what they do physically. during training, what does it mean for the potential clinical outcomes. And I just took it into the background. What was the solution? What we were working on? We just have seen that we do every day the similar work almost. So just operating patients and doing sutures on vessels. Of course, cardiac surgeon, vascular surgeon do many times per day. Yeah, continuously this kind of work, but we have so limited information about the quality of the work, and how we can represent it, and how we can maybe interpret what you do during the surgery, how you make the sutures side by side, what has the better or worse outcome. So we had very limited information on that. And one side, as I mentioned, I worked on university, and I just stayed there as an instructor or teacher or something like that, just teaching surgeons and medical students. So one side we had this problem so at the training and during the education, and also at the clinical field, because as I mentioned, we do the work, we do the vessel sutures, and we can't say anything about the quality at the time of the surgery, just decades after we see the patients. And of course, we can't interconnect these two informations. And how we can interconnect the information, that was what we started to work on.
Well, that sounds really exciting in a way that I think, let's say, when people are trained using your solution, those surgeons should be so much better. And I think at least I would feel confident, that is like fully trained surgeon on your model, that they know that the clinical outcomes on my operation, or any of in our audience watching us today or in a replay, that they know that, these surgeons really know the feedback and way more trained, rather than making these trial and error operations that historically surgeons used to do through, I would say, decades of training.
Definitely. So thank you. Actually, it's the vision, so what we see and also believe in, and how we could just work on, and what is we, of course, the team, but is dedicatedly work on that. And it's a bit answer to your very first question. So why I changed my career to be an entrepreneur. And it's not just because to be an entrepreneur or some independency or something like that. It's rather that we just continuously identify interesting questions, and continuously meet with very interested professionals, and outside of clinical field and outside of doctors, setting or connection, and of course that a given problem has a lot of questions. Of course, how you interpret a problem, how you interpret and how you deconstruct an information for a surgeon, so those are very simple thinking guys, and how you can interpret the information, how you can find a way of science of education in the background. Of course, educated and also pedagogy comes into the field, and of course a lot of engineering questions like 3D modeling and simulations and a lot of things, and big data and AI. And so those points, of course, means inputs for me, of course, and for every single member of the team. What does that we just see we can gain with, and every single inputs means that one person can find their own field in that project.
You mentioned the team quite a few times, and we have a question coming from the audience right now. it's just like, how did you manage to put your team together? I think like lots of people maybe watching, they are finishing their master's and doctorate studies, have been doing the research and often alone. And you know, for a successful startup, very important is like having a great team together. So how did you find really your team members, like the initial, I think you had like 3 co-founders besides you. How did you manage to kind of put the, like all of you together, and how you also have managed to expand your team now to, I think you're like 3 or 4 times bigger than when you initially started?
Mm-hmm. I think the hardest and most effortful work is that actually, of course, the co-founders, we just had from the beginning, we had just you know, that vision and wish to solve that problem technologically, and also from business kind of validation, and how we try to gain. Of course, I can't say any too clever things for that, but mostly I just have the gut feeling. It's that, and I do think we can ask maybe the team members, but I do think we just highlight the work on of communication and be in safe and enjoyable setting here at this team. It's the first point I would say, and every team member who just joined to us has the direct, you know, how to say, so they have the direct wish to reach something in their own professional field, I mean, and they have the direct motivation. I would say it's the most important thing, of course, motivation and belief in vision, and communicate together the most time what we can actually. Yeah, and it will be decided so through this way, and even during the selection or something like that, we can feel that okay, we potentially we can work together, or it has less probability maybe. And also we just have the help of some psychologists even. So for team psychologists, like we just work directly together. It was easy because one of our co-founder here, so the 3D modeler guy, has the vibe of dealing with organization psychology. So. Okay.
And all of your team members, you work physically together, or like now in the times of Corona, we know that like remote work is also emerging. Like, do you think like, what about this kind of like, can remote surgeons work together even in using Zoom or something like that?
Yeah, so I think the question is similar everywhere. What we do, so during the first lockdown, we just had saying that we have to change, and of course we just were focusing on direct courses and how we can interpret that kind of you know, that kind of clinical prediction based training that I mentioned. Directly we went to sites and making courses mostly. Of course, we turned everything to online, and also went to home office. The home office question was, of course, there before even, and we just said that everyone can have their own preferences, of course, regarding the home office, and everyone has their own biorhythm. So that's it. Of course, our meetings are so helpful and important, of course. So therefore, just during the springtime, we opened the office again, and here we use it mostly for meetings. So just being together, and everyone, if they want and want to be alone or work on something, then they can, of course. So they are on home office mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see one more question coming in. I mean, I think once you have put the team together, I think one kind of complicated thing that people might kind of face in medical field is selling your solution. And I think do you have any tips for anybody kind of like, let's say, starting up that, okay, they finish their studies, they manage to find some fellow friends and colleagues, put the team together, you have a great product, but how you win the support from the clinical management in the hospitals or like a national care system that they would actually use your product, that, I mean, you are excited, your colleagues are excited, but how you make those others out there working in the medical field to be also excited by a product and even willing to pay for that? Like, how did you manage to do that? And do you have any tips for anybody trying to follow that pursuit in Hungary and in other countries across Europe?
Okay, so as a customer, so it was the question how we can convince someone. So firstly, we just, of course, we just facing on professional interest mostly. So of course we are colleagues, so not just me. So a couple of guys are doctors even here, and now what I see. So then we have the very interesting kind of the salespersons say that it's a very interesting kind of communication. How we just start to convince each other and or post questions, but it's really based on professional interest. And of course, as I had this kind of frustration, so they also have that potentially. So that's why we can find a way. And of course, what we had to gain with, and it's a clear thing. So it's my and even many other team members' limitations that. Of course, we are not salespersons. So and we just and it's also regarding the selection, we were gained with really good salespersons and experts and in medtech field, and they understand other interconnections and other logical way of thinking. And now we try to work like this. So everyone has the position during the negotiation, and yeah, so that's the way how we maybe try to be next to each other.
So that sounds together. Like it's very important to kind of hire the people that you would be complementary. Maybe that if you would be great in explaining in medical terms for the doctors, like the technical talk, that you also have somebody maybe from more like financial and sales marketing background to take care of the other part of the sales equation.
Definitely, yeah. So and also the question of selection, and then we can go to the next page. But also regarding, I think it's very important. So everyone has to define its own limitations, and if we can't define our limitation, then we can go further on the project. Yeah, it's a very clear thing, and if we and as we know our limitations, then we can go further on to define and even seeking pitfalls and errors. So during the processes of works, and yeah, that is how we try to work. Yeah, and also, of course, we can interconnect through this communication somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think being honest, like but how actually this is it's just came up in my mind. This is isn't that quite unusual that the doctors would admit their mistakes, or like there's like, hey, this is the area I don't know about. Because I think for many people out there, they might think like you are a doctor, then you should know everything. You're like God with a scalpel in hand. That's
a good question. Yeah, maybe that's why we need that kind of thinking. So from clinical field and from other fields also, and interconnect somehow. I think the game is changing. So of course, we try to show our face like we are immortal, or I don't know what. And of course, it's the question of the interpretation of what I mentioned. So we interpret some pitfalls, but the need, and it's also very important to identify the need. Of course, I had some frustration. Okay, I'm one single person, so it's okay. I was frustrated, and a couple of colleagues beside me with the problem. But what is the need? If you see and that's why it's also one extra point for starting that project. The need is to every resident, even expert surgeons wants the training options, and exactly, it's a bit hard to say, but exactly we and all of the residents all around the world get so limited help during the practical training. And it is because that what you said, maybe. So everyone feels that, okay, I try to build a wall around me, and I'm a god. So at the tower of the wall, and that's why the education of the younger surgeons and residents is so limited. And if you just see the potential market or just just science how it works, then you see if you just announce a single option for hands-on training, then everyone wants to go there and register, because they really want to know more about the practical training and gain more information, I would say, what they can get during the normal clinical work.
That's awesome. And talking about this learning more and actually making innovation, I see one of the person watching us today has also submitted the question like, what do you think about the grants? Like, I mean, probably like, you got the idea, you were telling how you were working at nights on your idea, but at one point, probably you had to get also some kind of funding for this. So what do you think is the best way forward for the innovators? Are really like securing grants essential, or like, I mean, like how you would kind of secure this kind of funding for taking the idea further than just working at night, but like going full time? Like, should you do fundraising or writing, become a master grant writer? Like, what's the best way to innovate in Europe? What do you think?
Of course, I don't know. That's the best way, but okay. Just go back to the first point. So the grants, I would say that no, I do think, and I'm convinced that small teams and companies can solve several applied problems better than universities or clinics or even larger organizations. So I do think so. It's there are more points to effectivity and how they just try to figure out solution, and that's why it's important. I would say, if the question was regarding the grants options for smaller teams or even teams for less or lower revenues, then I would say it's the way for funding of solutions for dedicated and really described challenges. Of course, thereafter, maybe you can go for fundraising. But it's not so important what we did. And also, it's not the best example, I guess. But we have just fundraised for the very first time, starting from pre-seed level. And of course, we learned a lot, from starting from the negotiations and also the all of the terms of that kind of fundraising agreements. But we also had the the direct push to reach milestones, and maybe what can university or research group why could they be a bit less effective? It's somewhat that, so it's they have maybe less push on it. And for larger organizations, I would say that the innovative, the trialing, the research or development kind of thinking is less a bit. I don't know what I missed to answer, or is
no,
there
I
any...
mean, I think that's great. One of the funny questions also, this is a cake session. And when one of the people watching us today is asking, like, what's your favorite cake, and what is your suggestion if people want to stay healthy and keep their hearts working, that they don't need a cardiac surgery? What is the cakes they should eat with afternoon tea time?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a. How to say? Of course, the sweeteners and sugar. It's not the way what I could say that it's healthy. And I'm also not the biggest expert in that field. My favorite cake. It's some cakes that contain some dough and sour cream. Sour cream with some, how to say, the fruits. So that's that's my favorite one, I would say. What was the other question or other part of the question?
Well, I mean, I understand it was like in a way that what cake would I mean, I think people understand that now. Like, if you want to innovate like Balazs and put the team together, have a sour cream cake with some fruits this summer, and hopefully you will get the inspiring moment to write the grant for in the next season.
No, the inspiring moments are, for me at least, and it's also regarding everyone has, and everyone, I think, have to identify their own best working biorhythm parts of during the day. So for me, it's around so in between 11 and 2 o'clock in the evening time. That is, and of course others are others, but it is the inspiring moment. So that it was the questions for me at least, and also biking. So during bike tours, I had sometimes so very crazy ideas. I always have crazy ideas, the team would say, but then some really really crazy things comes into mind. Yeah.
Great. So it's just like everybody watching us today. So have a bike ride. And have some sour cream cake with fruits, and hopefully it works between 11 and 2.
For me,
no, but it's just like, I think it's actually kind of interesting psychologically that every time you do like some kind of exercise, I think it helps to put your blood to flow, and then when you're like giving extra blood to your body and to your brain,
or less, I don't know.
maybe it's interesting. Like many people also there, I think sometimes if you're walking or something, it's also maybe the motion that you go forward can help. But probably I see one more question coming in from the audience is like, when did you kind of like really sense that it was like a worthy moment to drop your, I would say, the normal clinical career, direct care, and establish a startup? Because I think number of people like, they're contemplating, should they give up their day job? I mean, it's like exciting to work at night, but you have to have this kind of safety net of having also some monthly salary. like, when did you really feel, or what do you think, how should people kind of recognize that moment where they should say to the boss that, sorry, I will do my own company and I pay myself, rather than keep on working on full time for as a clinical researcher or like a doctor in a setting, and really give up the let's say the classical medical career.
It's interesting. So then, just coming back to the previous question a bit and interconnected to those. So of course, exercises you mentioned, it can be inspiring, and also I would say so a normal work of physician on especially maybe surgeons. So it's also an exercise like activity, and of course you directly see every day, every second, the potential problems that you can maybe solve and think on that. And if you have a direct focused solution, then you can understand it a bit more in more detail every second. So it's the maybe the highest impact what one healthcare professional has now, and also the biggest need, the healthcare professional validation or understanding. And once you can decide, I would say I won't say you need to decide, but of course you have to make a decision. And of course, for me, it's a characteristic moment when I saw that I could see some vessel structure in that way what I haven't seen already, and I just understood that I have so many questions that I couldn't solve during the practice, and then I decided, and of course, but the what happens maybe with most of the persons, I just guessed, that you tend to have the feeling that you can't, or you make this your work as like an everyday work. Of course, as I mentioned, the questions arising every second. And of course, it's dependent on individual who caused it a frustration. So for me, I just have seen that if I continue that work in that institution where I were, then I would do it for the next 20 years, and of course I won't be better, and I won't be worse. And I would standardize my procedures like that, and I could do it on that way. And of course, I can learn some novel things or making novel procedures. But of course, it's highly independent of me, and it's not my decision, and even not my chairman's decision. And just understanding it means that, okay, maybe if I would like to, I don't know whether it's not a hard word, create something, I create nothing, but just have the feeling of the creation or building something, that it's not the best way of staying there and do the very similar procedures for 20 years. And since I had a lot of questions, so when I saw my first anastomosis, so I mean vessel sutures from inside in high resolution, then I understood I have a lot of data and a lot of questions. I need a lot of connections right now for other professionals and other areas, and just sit down and talk about. I think it, of course, is the hardest decision. You have to make it. Even you can decide whether you can continue, and of course, in the intermediate period, you can continue your work and understand how the entrepreneurship maybe works, or just have some impressions, and thereafter you have to make the decision. of course, if you would like to create something, if you would like to build something, then you have to take this this decision. Yeah, all of you actually, all of you have to decide something at a given moment. Yes.
And like all of your team, like 4 of you, you decided to kind of do it together, or there was still like, you know, some kind of like maybe somebody was doing part-time while some people were doing like full-time product development?
You mean at the beginning?
Yes,
yeah.
that you took the plunge. I mean, the plunge you were just like, you know, describing that, you know, one time you feel, and then you understood that, you know, you can't do that stuff for 20 years, and you decided to do it on your own. Like, but I think did your full team manage to kind of, let's say, this is like, they decided like, hey, this is like 1st of July. we all leave the job and start developing this startup.
Yeah, so it's a good question. Of course, it's not it doesn't happen like this. So it didn't happen like this. So but and I would say I'm brave enough for make those kind of decisions. I'm not that guy. So that but of course I decided that I would like to deal and more with that and engage more in that project, and also the co-founders at their own profession. And since we saw that of course it's more or less validated, and also it has a need and the market potentially, so then we just started to find funds for that. And of course what decided everything when we just get the first positive answer for investors. And then we just had to decide that, okay, we have to focus in full time almost. Yeah.
That's
so
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think hearing that also from the investors like give the confidence that, hey, you know, we can.
Of course, it makes a characteristic moment. So then they can decide. Of course, the question is, what is your time management regarding your other working hours, maybe. But I think an investor really focusing on the team itself and on the vision itself, and of course we made the promise that, okay, we can focus on that. And it made a big, so we made the push for that, of course, for all of the project, and everyone had to decide, and who couldn't decide, and they could work partial time or even leave us actually, and we who really believed in that vision, so then we could work on that with the new funds.
Awesome. There is however, one more question I see coming up from the audience. Mm-hmm. Is that it's great to take the plunge and everything, and it seems in your case there is a very good like team spirit. But do you have any tips for maybe some entrepreneurs who are like starting out there in clinical setting, and maybe like did even you maybe have moments where you would felt yourself lonely in your innovation? Like how to kind of overcome those moments of loneliness in this entrepreneurial journey?
Always you are lonely, and never you are lonely, I would say. I mentioned you have to make a decision. You guys, for the audience, I would say. So of course you have to decide whether you want to build something. If you would like to build something, then you start to be informated enough in your project, of course. And now you, at least from the perspective of clinics, a new door opens for you regarding connections. You just really can find fantastic persons and from other professionals and who see problems differently, and you just have the feeling that ooh, okay, so I'm not just speaking with doctors, so it's sometimes it's perfect to fail. And thereafter I'm sure you will find a lot of persons who are really interested, a lot of persons who are really seeking for something like creation. And of course, the probability is very few. When you find your co-founders, if it's that was the question. So of course, just imagine the population, so 10 persons, 15 persons of the populations have more tendency for innovate something, or more so put more effort in that field. And just finding that kind of person, so it's very few probability, but you can find. And I think for you who just are thinking on that, you have two main facts what you can deal with, and you have to deal with, I would say, because once the project itself, what you have in your mind, the idea itself, because you came from the professional field and you just identified the direct problem, it's really interested for mostly for everyone. And secondly, and it is the biggest advantage, that it is validated, at least by you and your colleagues. So that given department needs that solution, at least. And if someone would just start from outside, I have an imagination for a clinic, it would be great for deal with, then it's a less validated solution. But what comes from inside, and then you have to do the decision, you have more advantages because it's validated. And vice versa, if you are engineer, then you have the technological validation, and you just need, of course, it's hard and low probability, but you can find the right doctor, right physician or healthcare worker, whatever, who can identify the validity level of the project.
Well, that sounds great, and I think this is like very, very practical advice as well. That everybody who's watching us today out there, if you have seen a problem like inside the clinical setting and you are a medical professional, that's already a good start, to build your next steps on. And I think what Balazs has just said, that if some people say no, there must be some people who say yes, and I think it's like a sales funnel that it's just have to talk to more people. Then it's like if the first one says no, then it's like, okay, talk to the next one, and if you talk to 100 people, then 10 or 15 people would actually say yes. So you have to talk to 100 people.
Yeah, so we physician, maybe we had to, we are built for making direct decisions, and of course we have interconnections, but less effort for direct discussion or open-minded way of discussion. And you will get that feeling, and it's fantastic feeling when you just try to see your solution from other perspective, and others can understand it from other viewpoint, and then a discussion comes, so that you haven't identified, and you can understand further problems that you can solve. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Balazs, for these insights. I think a number of people watching us today now, they have to refill their cup of coffee and rush to make a next patient appointment, or maybe even head to surgery out there. Do you have any last minute tips for everybody watching us today? And if they would have more questions, is there a way that people could reach you out? And maybe if they were too shy asking the questions today, can they ask that questions privately from you after this episode?
Absolutely. So we will write here my email address and also LinkedIn access. So just really be free to connect me. So, and also I had just some so during that during that not only that project but during that way what I tried to start it with. So I found so many project, and I'm just what we just discussed, or even I was be involved more or less in that. So then I'm more than open for all of your questions. Maybe last sentence based on that what we have talked about. So yeah, and it's also a topic or stuff for you. Just write me, because you needless to be shy for based on that. So if you have any question, then you have the question, and you are more better than those who didn't pose that question. So it's really true. And also, as I mentioned, there are some characteristic moments, and there are some hard decisions. But what you get on the other side, it's the feeling of creation and feeling of working with fantastic and multidisciplinary persons. And the other side is a bit more one-sided, I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Balazs. And thank you everyone for watching. I all hope that you enjoyed this afternoon cake session. If you want to see other episodes, afternoon cakes and all other events EIT Health Alumni is organizing, you can go to the address just over here, alumni.eithealth.eu, and hit the subscribe button that you would be notified about all our next events coming up. If you like this episode, feel free to share this video on what we have uploaded to the YouTube channel. And if you did like this, you can also press like. And if you are interested in more support measures to support health tech innovators, you can also go to eithealth.eu and discover all the many programs that the EIT Health is organizing throughout the year to support health tech innovators, starting from boot camps, validation measures and exercises, and all the way to accelerator programs that also help you to secure the proper health tech innovators, investments to your fellow innovators, including you, for your startups. Thank you for watching this episode so much, and see you soon again in a new cake session.